with special regard to the education, awareness raising and engagement of the scientific communities into the biosecurity and dual use issues, and especially trying to develop education with the universities. The project, which I'm going to present, is the activities briefly outlined in this slide, has also been realized thanks to a grant from the US Biosecurity Engagement Program. And these activities included mainly, firstly, a gap analysis, an investigation trying to elicit a picture of what currently exists in terms of education and awareness of scientists in universities in Morocco regarding biosecurity and dual-use issues in the life sciences. The project also included initiatives of discussion and engagement of faculty members to try to discuss together challenges, opportunities, and strategies to have the promotion of education on these issues, especially on biosecurity and prevention of misuse and the dual-use issues with the scientists. Also, the project included discussion on possible future of educational materials for students and what are the challenges to prepare and implement this. And we also presented the project, we and IMPS presented the project in a number of international gatherings where these activities could be regarded as possible models, and I'm going to show a couple of examples in the head of the presentation. So firstly, presenting to you the results of the gap analysis, which was very much based on a survey, an interview survey, on professors in Moroccan universities. This survey aimed to elicit some picture on basically three issues. Firstly, what are the current educational opportunities? Second, what are the levels of awareness? And thirdly, what are the opinions of educators in Moroccan universities about education on biosecurity issues and dual-use issues. The survey was carried between February and September last year, and the methodology used was to use face-to-face and email interviews based on a questionnaire carried by focal points of IMPS in the various Moroccan universities. And actually, I would like to use the occasion to thank all the focal points of IMPS, many of which I know are present today. I also have the opportunity of personally greeting with some, because their work was very, very important. The inclusion criteria for interviewees was to be faculty members teaching to students of life science and biotechnology courses in faculties. So we mainly included life scientists, but also medical doctors, chemists, and other professionalities. The questionnaire used was based on previous surveys, including some made in other countries by NCB and by other organizations, such as, for example, the University of Bradford, who worked on this in the past, also with us. The question was also adapted to Moroccan context based on the feedback received from focus groups and an online investigation on the curricular contents made in 2010, and was, of course, translated in French. The respondents were briefed about the purposes, the aims of the project, and the terminology used, including the terminology of biosecurity, and the differences, and what we meant by references of some key terms included or not included in the courses. The sections included profile questions and sections on the three main parts: the educational opportunities, the awareness levels, and the opinions. The sample was very much opportunistic, was not randomized, was based on the network of the focal points. However, we were able to collect interviews from 230 individuals, from 13 universities, the large majority of which are professors, either PES, PE, or PEH. Over 80% are from Faculté des Sciences, or Faculté des Sciences et Techniques. A large majority opted for remain anonymous, an option that we inserted thinking that it was useful to encourage honest replies on inclusions or not inclusions of some context in the courses. I don't know if this is very visible, actually it reports some other characteristics of the sample. We asked about the background disciplines of the professors in the field. The relative majority are from microbiology, other areas are biology, sciences de la vie, physiology, chimie. We also asked what are the filières d'intervention of the professors, and they were able to indicate more than one. So the filières d'intervention are more than the number of replies. The large majority is biology, but there are also biotechnology degrees and ecologies and others. Generally, the respondents in total teach to over 300 modules and on average to 250 students. For 2/3, roughly, they teach in licence degree, so bachelor degrees, and 1/3 in master. So results of the first part regarding what are the current, or at least in the last academic year, educational opportunities in Moroccan curricula on biosecurity and dual-use issues. So firstly, we asked to the professor if they give some specific courses focused on the topics of biosecurity or bioethics. And our findings suggest that apart from biosecurity, which is claimed to be taught in 80.5% of specific courses, the others are very little consideration. And we also asked about references, so something smaller than a specific course, like one lecture or a reference in a book, for example, regarding some other keywords or key topics, like biological weapons or dual use or codes of conduct, and also in this case, the response were very low percentages from 1% to 5% claiming or professor claiming some references. We also asked some comments about the context of these references. There seems to be some confusion between the terms biosecurity and biosecurity. Also because biosecurity actually is not very used in universities. They seem to use generally biosecurity for both terms, and actually also for referring to OGM biosafety, so prevention of risks deriving from genetically modified organisms. The context for biosecurity references are generally regarding the good practice in the laboratories, or on the other side, actually GMO biosafety. The reference to bioethics instead are generally reported with regard to animal experimentation, use of animals, confidentiality, cloning, and also dual-use in some cases. Second part, the levels of awareness of educators. We thought that an indication could come from this question that we made. Are you aware of laws and regulations regarding research in life sciences, including regulations on potential dual-use issues that could emerge from research? We had only 11.5% of our respondents that claimed to be aware of some regulations, and actually these seem to be quite equally low in various subgroups, like different faculties or different levels of intervention. The examples of laws and regulation that we got quoted from respondents ranged from regulation on laboratory P2 and P3, bioethics guidelines in some cases, international regulations for OGMs, the Moroccan Ministerial Commissions on Genetic Engineering and Biomolecular Engineering at the national Third part of results from our survey were about the opinions of educators. So we asked, for example, how the professors, the faculty members, qualified the awareness raising of students on these issues, if they thought it was a priority. And a very large majority of our respondents actually thought that it was important or very important. Interestingly, those professors and educators that had replied in the beginning that they already gave some references on biosecurity and biosafety to their students have a significantly larger share of importance given their opinions to these awareness raising. So this meaning that where the awareness is already starting, this importance is more clear. Also, we asked if the respondents had the intention of modifying or changing or expanding their courses, maybe inserting these themes. And the responses were quite mixed in this case. We had relatively majorities in various subgroups of professors saying, yes, I think I will try to modify my course and insert the themes, and others saying no, I will not, or I can't. We also asked comments and reasons for these replies. So among the positive comments on the importance of awareness raising, there were, for example, those respondents that underline how these are very actual and current issues and are important for the students to be aware. One very returning comment is that it is necessary to focus on the next generation, so students, because the students of today are the scientists and the decision makers in science of tomorrow. And I quote actually some of the respondents to these. Also, some comments say that training on the laboratory safety and security may be easier because the students may see more directly their connection with their health and their well-being, while other bioethical issues may take a longer time because it is more complex somehow to show the link between the social impacts and ethical impacts of our research with the research itself. We also have some critical comments or comments that underline the difficulties of implementation strategy. For example, the fact that there is a lack of teaching time and expertise among educators to teach these issues. And also the issue that it may be difficult or complex to enlarge, change curricula, modify curricula, because also bureaucratic burden on doing these issues. It seems especially true on the master level. And also some comments that say that awareness raising is important, but it also has to be balanced, not to lead to paranoia on research, which is also very important. So concluding on the survey results, we thought that there is very limited specific educational opportunities on biosecurity and on issues related to potential dual use and misuse of life sciences. There are some more specific occurrences or specific models on biosafety and bioethics, which we looked for thinking that they may be useful vehicles or possible vehicles, whether for the dual use, but also for the dual use discussion and awareness raising. But however, these are not very spread, they are not everywhere and very generally implemented. There is an issue of terminology, especially with the French translation, because the term generally used is biosecurity, and this expands to the various uses, at least it is seen from the practical daily practice of many among the professors, and it also refers often to the OGM risk management and risk assessment, which is also included with biosecurity. The levels of awareness of professors, as some seemed also quite low. We asked to self-evaluate awareness on laws or regulation, for example. However, a strong majority of faculty members qualify awareness raising of students important. And this seems true across all the specialization and various curricula. And this seems also more true among those that already have some knowledge of these issues and maybe already teach something about this. Several professors underline also the challenges and the requirements for implementation that would be having more means and resources, including expertise, didactic materials, and proper equipment, of course, as well as teaching time and possibility to insert new subjects in the curriculum. Also developing on the networking, the involvement of scientists made with the survey and with the interviews. We also, in this joint project between NSCB and IMBS, we also organized some moments of discussion with faculty members in Morocco. Especially we organized two workshops last year. The first one in February on the teaching and awareness raising on biosecurity and dual use on Moroccan universities, and another large workshop in late last year in October on the state and promotion of these education and awareness raising strategies in Moroccan universities, and workshops that were actually held here at the faculty this month, in Rotterdam, and that were very useful to get feedbacks from professors and faculty members, both members of the MBS and other parties professors. In this case, the project also supported the development of the website of MBS, which was launched the year before, and that would be useful to host not only news, very important news on the activities, but also information and reference materials. Regarding reference materials, we tried to collect opinions, suggestions, feedbacks from the educators, the faculty members that were involved in the discussion on what would be the features, the contents, as well as the formats in some way of possible educational materials collections for the Moroccan next generation of scientists or students. What should be involved, included in this collection? For example, there should be the general concepts, some effort to clarify the issues and the terminology in French with reference to the international agreed, which are often in English documents. Overviews on the historical and political challenges, the current law, legislation and regulation at both the national, international and regional level. Would be interesting, for example, in this case, to have a compared national legislation overview with other cases that may be interested for the Moroccan scientific community. For example, to the European Union legislation or the US or the Canadian legislations, as well as the bioethical and codes of conduct parts. Finally, this joint project included the workshops that LNCB organizes through the International Working Group, which is a group of scientists and policymakers on the security implications of sciences. The workshop on biosecurity and biosafety organized last November on Lake Como. Another example was a specific side event that was organized by LTV and the University of Bradford at the sites of the 7th Review Conference of the Biological and Toxic Weapon Convention, so the international treaties on prohibiting biological weapons. A side event which was kindly supported by Canada and which was chaired by the Canadian ambassador in Geneva. And where among a series of experiences of promoting education, there was also the Moroccan experiences, thanks to Professor Anif Adime, who presented in Geneva. And the last example, very recent, a bit more than 1 month ago, in Venice, where a very interesting workshop was organized by LCD, CDR, and Science and Technology in the Mediterranean region. And also in this case, this joint project was regarded as one. So I think it's very important. We had quite interesting results. I think this should be regarded as a first step somehow, or first steps, since the most important result, in my opinion, is the construction of a network via the VS work that was able to engage as much as possible scientists in universities, and that would probably lead to an increasing implementation of education on biosecurity and dual management towards these issues. And for quote again one of our respondents, this is very important because the scientists of today are actually, the students of today are actually the scientists, and even more importantly, the